Chapter 34. The search is on. Breathing heavily after running the length of the firing line and back twice looking for Sierra, Carlos was ready to do it again. Seeing that Carlos had suffered more than one hit to his vest, Kate grabbed his arm as he came near. "You can't keep going like this, Carlos!" She noticed that his vest hadn't stopped all the bullets. Carlos dropped down to a knee next to Kate with a worried look on his face. "I have to find her, Kate." He stood up. Not letting go, Kate pulled his arm back down to her, knowing that she wasn't actually making the man come down by her own strength, but because he allowed it. Kate couldn't imagine how big a person would have to be to force Carlos to move, but she was pretty sure there were none around. With Carlos back down to where they could talk safely, Kate said, "Listen, we are going to be moving to the right. Karnak has made it inside the compound, so he is drawing most of the fire. I know Sierra didn't come my way, so she had to have gone down the right side of the line. Go down the line and have every fourth soldier stay in place. Everyone else follows me. We will find her, Carlos." She patted the mountain of a man on his shoulder. Kate watched as he moved down the line faster than men half his size. Soon, soldiers all along the line to her left began heading her way. Working her way down the line, Kate gave orders to every fourth soldier to hold the line, while the rest were to follow. Kate stopped at the very end of the container where two soldiers looked her way, surprised to see so many. "Ma'am, what's going on?" one of the two asked in surprise. "You call me Kate or nothing at all." Kate never wanted to be called ma'am. With that out of the way, she asked, "Did Sierra come this way?" Assuming they would know who she was, as everyone did. "Yes, ma. Kate," the soldier caught himself. Just as the young soldier answered, Carlos ran up alongside Kate. Surprised by the response to her question, she looked to Carlos. "Didn't you ask anyone if they had seen her?" Carlos ignored Kate's question and asked one of his own. "Which way did she go?" "She took a grenade, blew the fence over there, and then went through that door," the other soldier answered. Carlos looked at the two of them with an expression that caused them both to crawl away as he began to growl at them. "And you let her go alone?" Jumping to his feet, Carlos saw a few doors, but only one that was held open by a dead man. He knew instantly that that was where she went, and he raced off like a horse from a shot at the Kentucky Derby. Without regard for safety, Carlos ran across the open space in front of him to the fence where Sierra had made the opening. Like an unstoppable tank, he dove to the ground and began crawling through the small break in the links. Once on the other side, Carlos squeezed off 2 shots at a soldier with a blue helmet running his way. The first bullet missed, but the second struck the soldier's upper thigh, causing him to tumble to the ground. Back on his feet, Carlos squeezed off 1 more round that relieved the pain the blue-helmeted soldier felt in his leg. As Carlos ran for the door, puffs of dirt came up all around him as bullets struck. As the bullets missed, Carlos thought, "Man, they are shitty shots," before thinking about Sierra once again. Standing to one side of the door that was held open by the dead man, he held his rifle by his right hand and pushed the door open with all the power he had in his left. Although his left arm had been weakened from a bullet passing through it during his previous search, it still contained more power than many others. With the door wide open, Carlos moved away from the wall, pointing his rifle into the doorway as the inside came into view. As he stepped cautiously through the doorway, he heard a thump to this left. On the ground 30 feet away lay a twisted body. Shrugging his shoulders, he returned his attention to the hallway ahead of him and the room just inside the door. Carlos could tell that something major had happened here with all the bodies still leaking blood all around. Watching as Carlos ran, Kate gave the order for them to follow her as she stepped out around the stacks of containers. Firing in their direction had slowed, but Kate wasn't taking any chances. 10-meter intervals, she called back as she took the lead. By the time she and the others were halfway to the fence, she could see Carlos swinging the door open. Just as she made it through the gap in the fence, she saw Carlos enter the building and wanted to scream out for him to wait, but knew it would do no good. One at a time, soldiers passed through the fence and made their way across to the building. A few picked up weapons and ammunition from those no longer needing them. Although they had weapons of their own, they knew the men they were about to release would have a great use for them. With 6 soldiers alongside her, including Darian and Mac, Kate gave a wave of her hand forward, signaling the others to follow. Entering the door, Kate heard gunfire coming from just down the hall. She knew they had to keep moving, so instead of checking the room to the right, Kate moved on down the hall and stopped at the next open door as Mac, Darian, and another soldier lined up behind her. Feeling Mac slap her shoulder to signal that they were set and ready to move, Kate ran into the room and continued straight ahead, while Mac went right. The process continued until each had entered and determined that the room was safe. Exiting the room was much easier, as other teams had moved on down the hall to the next. Kate and her team moved down the hall toward the area where the gunfire was coming from. Rounding the corner at the end of the hall, Kate could see Carlos at the other end taking up half the hallway. Seeing that he was receiving a great deal of return fire, Kate turned to inform her team they were going to skip the rooms and go help Carlos. Just as her mouth opened, Darian fired his rifle in Carlos's direction just as he came around the corner. Kate looked at the young black man with a horrified expression on her face, knowing the only person down the hall when she had just looked was Carlos. Kate could already picture him dead on the floor, and how devastated Darian was going to feel when he realized what he had done. Within that span of 3 seconds, Kate felt minutes go by as she turned back to face Carlos, only to see him still firing and 2 CERT soldiers lying on the floor. Quickly, Kate turned back to Darian and the others on her team. "We go room by room, no shortcuts." Kate was thankful she didn't skip the rooms as she had planned. Each room was cleared up to the point where Kate stood at the opposite side of the hallway from Carlos. With the last round in his magazine fired, the bolt on Carlos's rifle locked open. Ejecting the empty magazine, Carlos reached into the pouch on his vest for one of his last 2 of the 10 he had started with. As he pulled on one of the 2 magazines together in the pouch, both tried to come out together. Figuring it would be easier to get them separated once they were out of the pouch, Carlos pulled them both out as one. Just as the magazines cleared the pouch, rounds began dropping to the floor. Surprised, Carlos held up the magazine to investigate the problem that became instantly clear. The 2 magazines were bound together by twisted metal from a bullet that had passed through the 2 and into his vest. Throwing the useless magazines to the floor, Carlos stretched out his hand to Kate. "I need a mag," he shouted over the echoing of rifle fire from down the hall. Kate wondered just how many bullets he could take before they slowed him down. Then she looked over to Mac. "Give Carlos some of the magazines you picked up." While Mac reached into a pack strapped to Darian's back to retrieve ammunition for Carlos, Kate began working on another idea. Removing a small dental mirror from her pocket, she held it out around the corner to find the location of the gunman. Watching through the mirror, Kate saw them exit a door, firing and retreating back into the room. Estimating it to be about 50 feet down the hall and on the same side she was standing, Kate put away the dental mirror and pulled a grenade from its pouch of her vest. Taking the full magazines of ammunition handed to him by Mac, Carlos watched Kate pulling the grenade from her vest. "I tried that. They just duck back into the room until after it explodes." Kate pieced together what Carlos had said, smiled, and pulled the pin on the grenade in her right hand. Kate raised one finger in the air with the pin hanging off it, as if to say, "You didn't try this." Kate stepped away from the wall, turned, and rolled the grenade to the wall across the hall from the room where the gunmen were firing. Carlos watched as the grenade banked off the wall and began rolling to the shooter's doorway. Turning away from the hallway, Kate waited for the blast. As soon as the blast wave dissipated, Kate and Carlos rounded the corner, heading down the hall toward where the men had been firing. From the body parts and blood that had blown out into the hall, it was easy for them to see that most of the blast had taken place inside the room. Glancing back to Carlos, Kate was ready to move on. "This time, take half the guys that way and I'll take the rest this way." Kate pointed down the hall, ways that branched off to the left. "Remember, we are getting close to where the veterans are being kept, so be sure of your targets." Kate directed this not to Carlos, but to the less experienced members of their team. Kate took the lead and quickly moved her team down the long hallway, clearing each room they approached. More than one of them now contained dead CERT or UN personnel. At the end of the long hall stood a steel door with a small window. As Kate and her team approached, she saw a great deal of movement through the little window. Holding up her hand, Kate slowed the team as they moved just feet away from the glass and looked through. What she saw took her breath away. It was unbelievable in this day and age, even with all that had happened over the last few months. People were packed so tightly in cages that they didn't have enough room to even sit down. Kate also couldn't believe that it wasn't just one level but two. Without even realizing it, Kate's need for revenge for Sawyer's death left her thoughts for the first time since it had happened. Now her mind was filled with how to get the people out of there.